Hey guys, it's Jonathan McCormack. I'm an attachment specialist. You can find me at attachmenthealinghelp.com. And today I want to talk about love and what is that. The reason is because there are people with anxious attachment, people with a lot of anxiety, relationship OCD, and after a while you realize they all have certain thoughts. They have certain ways of looking at a relationship, certain expectations. And these expectations lead to a great deal of stress and anxiety. And they don't know what to expect from a relationship. And oftentimes they ask me, should I expect that? Is this reasonable? And we don't really know what to expect from a relationship, you know. Many of us have never seen a healthy relationship. And I haven't. Most I saw was on Disney. Is that real? Can I really expect that? And so I wanted to talk about that, a realistic love story, a new kind of love story. And the truth is, even if you become very securely attached, right, you will always have anxiety. You always have, even the most secure person has insecurities. Even the most secure person will have a lot of uncertainty. And if you would like certainty and security and ultimate safety, do not get into a relationship. That is the last place you want to go. Buy yourself a dog. It's a lot easier. You kind of know what to expect. And the truth is, if you want to have a real relationship without being crushed by anxiety, you have to let go of certain myths. You have to let go of the one. You have to let go of the idea that there is a one out there. You have to let go that there's someone who's going to rescue you from your loneliness. That'll never happen. Someone's going to rescue you from your insecurities. Someone that is responsible for your happiness. No one will ever make you happy, period. You will not make anyone happy, 100%. That will not happen. You have to let go of the fantasy of the boy meets girl, and there's this sparks and fireworks. This love story I'll tell you about, it's not that glamorous. Probably make a terrible movie. I doubt I'd go see it. It won't whisk you away on a white horse or solve your problems, but it will be meaningful because it will be real. And I'm telling you right now, it is hard to break up with these myths. It is really hard. Deep down in, because you want it to be true so badly. But the other choice is believing in these myths and living a very painful, anxious-filled relationship, you know? Well, you can do that, or you can live a real relationship that is also can be painful, mundane, and filled with unknowns, but be real, an actual real relationship, you know? And I'll just tell you, this whole myth of the one, it hasn't delivered on its promise. I heard the story. I've seen it. I know people chase it. It hasn't delivered, you know? Instead, it has strangled good enough love with the expectation of a perfect partnership. A lot of this, by the way, is by from Sheve Raji's book. She talks about relationship OCD, but it applies to anyone who deals with anxiety in relationship, you know? Interestingly, I once went to a conference where they had different religious organizations talk about what they thought marriage was. Fascinating. Because none of them talked about marriage as personal fulfillment, which is kind of what I naturally think of marriage as, you know. None of them talked about it at all. Instead, they talked about marriage as a profound vehicle of spiritual growth, you know, personal growth. And that makes sense. We all know that we often evolve through what isn't working in the relationship. Those are the things that often enlarge us rather than through what does, you know. It's through the conflicts and imperfections that we find the pathway to a higher self. The most interesting person in this conference was an Orthodox Eastern Christian priest, had a big beard, and he got up there and he goes, I tell people this like twice a year in my church. And this guy was married too, and his wife was there. And he said, like, marriage is something like a cruciform. And it's like two people. You put them in a pressure cooker, and you're supposed to sanctify each other and purify each other in this enormous pressure. And it's not fun. It's not supposed to be fun. It was never supposed to be fun. There can be rewards and joys and whatnot. Boy, I gotta say, when I heard that, I actually looked at his wife like, is she like, is she hearing this? I mean, it's kind of insulting. But she seemed to be comfortable with it. And he was like, it's hard work, but it's not meant for personal fulfillment. Is there fulfillment? Of course there is. There can be, And that was so interesting because here I am listening to what mankind thought marriage was for like 99% of its history. This whole new idea, dating was only invented in the 40s, And this whole new idea is very consumeristic, and there's big studies on this, but it's very new. It's very new. And it's bullshit, it just doesn't work, Once you know that you have to learn to live in the gray, and you have to know how difficult it is to step into the unknown and to live there, And that transition, it is frightening. It's frightening. Because this new love story, it doesn't give you a perfect formula. It doesn't guarantee or even, it's not even clear on how to find and maintain this love, Rather, this will be about finding healthy love, basics of healthy love. And here's the truth, no one likes to hear it. You have to learn how to tolerate the unknown. If you want to be in a relationship, that's where it happens. If you want to be living, it's in the places where there's unknown, uncertainty. It's deeper than that. You have to learn how to thrive in the unknown, We've all been looking for an answer. How do I figure this out? The uncertainty is the answer. Now, in healthy love, there's some basics. I mean, if you meet someone, you want to know they regulate you, you regulate them. In other words, you're around them and your system calms down. To me, I think of my grandpa. I was around my grandpa, I could really be myself. I felt very relaxed. Number 2, you gotta have the same values, right? That's important. Number 3, you have the same vision for the future. I usually go over this first date. I just spend 5 minutes. Hey, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm looking for in the future. This is what I think a relationship looks like. What about you? Okay. But after that, there's not a whole lot. I know people write books, the 12 steps of finding the pair. Listen, after that, it's a lot of uncertainty, Yet, there are basic things. You do want the 3 C's, they call it, chemistry, connection, and compatibility, right? Now, when I say chemistry, though, we're going to have to give the new definition. Because when people think of chemistry, they think of butterflies in the stomach. That tells you nothing. That tells you you're nervous, excited. People who jump out of planes have butterflies in their stomach, too. Doesn't mean they're in love with the plane. Don't go by that. And oftentimes, when there are instant fireworks, if the people fall in love the first 3 weeks, that almost never works out. Because you don't know the person. You don't even know if you like them. What are you falling in love with? That's fake, And oftentimes I do have people that worry. Yeah, I met this person and it's very nice, but there's no big fireworks. Yeah, that's fine. There's other definitions of chemistry. You do need chemistry, but it doesn't have to be that kind, The myth, this is one of the myths, is that the only way you can say you have chemistry together is if you have all the right feelings from the very start. That's the only valid way. When you meet the one, the right one, your breath will be taken away. You'll be swept off your feet. I've had those moments. We've all had those moments, okay? But that's a very small, limited definition of what chemistry can mean. And I gotta tell you, I've had those moments where I had that take my breath away. Whoa. That did not translate into that person being available, loving, or compatible with me. Those fireworks do not translate. That's great for a hot date. But if you're looking for a long-term relationship, you're looking for marriage, it doesn't make for a sexy, exciting movie, but you need to be compatible. That person has to be emotionally available. and you have to be able to love them and accept their love in the way they present it, you know. And by the way, this isn't theory. The University of Texas, McNulty did this big study with Neff. This is like 2008, where they actually, surveyed people, and they found that the initial attraction, when you really feel attracted to someone, a strong attraction, that does increase the likelihood of forming a relationship. But it has no correlation to a long-term relationship with marital satisfaction or success. The people who never felt it are just as successful, are just as satisfied, and probably more so than someone who had it, So yeah, when you're walking down the street, you have that first date, you see him in the eyes, start to get that tingle. Yeah, that's exciting. That is not an accurate prediction of long-term success. That does not predict long-term satisfaction. That isn't. Instead, when you think of chemistry, you're going to have to think of there's a chemistry that can happen the first few months. That kind of alchemy. What does it take? Curiosity. Number one thing, curious. What does this person do? Why are they thinking that way? But there can be a chemistry that grows in the first few months. If you're curious, they're curious about you. As you get together, there can be that, And that kind of chemistry will be there after the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period, 18 months, you're in love. Maybe stretch it out for 2 years, maybe, I don't know. But that goes away. Yeah, little moments it creeps up. That goes away. And you need something more durable, So what that chemistry is, it's not just this irresistible pull towards your partner when things are good. In the beginning, where everything's lovey-dovey, no expectations, you don't know anything about their flaws. Basically, you're lying to each other. That's what's happening. But also when you don't like your partner, when your partner's not giving you what you need, when you're stressed financially, and some decisions you don't agree with, and now you have a lot of stress. Okay, are you still gonna have some pull towards them? Because that's gonna be a decent part of your marriage. Money's not always gonna be good. Stress isn't always gonna be low. The world comes off its hinges. That happens. Well, the myth of the one says it should. An ideal partnership is when two people connect, and they just have this mutual desire, this mutual shared interest. They can't get enough of each other. That should remain unbroken. No, that'll never happen, That'll never happen. There'll be times where you don't want to be married. There'll be times you seriously don't want to be married. And that strong pull is going to be absent, Ultimately, it shouldn't matter what challenges life throws at you, In the myth, it says, no matter what happens, partner gets cancer, lose their job, this happens, that doesn't matter what happened. The connection should never falter, because that's the right relationship. Yeah, forget that. That doesn't happen in the real life. Believe me, things happen, the relationship falters. You start thinking, am I with the right person? Is this worth it? Should I have gotten married? Can I divorce? It's uncertain. You're never 100% certain. That's fine, But if you have this idea that there's a myth of the one, then when you have seasons in your marriage, when you feel very disconnected, you'll think, this shouldn't be. I shouldn't feel disconnected. Something is wrong. Maybe this is the person I shouldn't be with, right? No. Every relationship will have these revolutions where you will have times of serious disconnection. Of course, in our minds, we always think growth is consistent. We'll just keep getting closer and closer forever. Like when you're in therapy or with a coach, you'll just keep getting better and better and better. That's not what happens. It never happens. John Gottman, the famous Gottman Institute, the guy's slick. And he's done so much research for the last couple of decades. Shocking number, but this is true. You can look it up. They found that We are only emotionally available in our relationships 9% of the time. That means 91% of the time, it's ripe for disconnection, misunderstandings, conflict. Interestingly, the one thing they did find was those disconnections aren't that important. Far more important is the repairs that follow. You fight, that's okay. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're with the wrong person. Do you fight, and are you closer afterwards? Do things get resolved? Is there growth? That's what matters. That's what matters. A healthy relationship is not one when there's no fights. No. A healthy relationship is when there's fights and you can repair them. And I have to say, when you're in a relationship, you may feel some form of this disconnection daily, in small ways. Maybe you ask to take out the trash, they don't do it. Or maybe you show them a meme or something you think is funny, and they don't laugh. And you kind of get this little rejection, like, oh, or maybe you say, oh, this book's really important, and they don't get it. It's like, oh, I kind of feel that. You feel that. It's not as interesting to them. Well, that will happen. That doesn't mean anything. And oftentimes it'll be bigger. Well, when you differ on what to do with finances, some days you'll be tired, they'll be energetic, vice versa. Sometimes you'll have high desire for intimacy, and they'll be low. And then comes the day where you have to admit it and you fully understand. You understand that your partner will never, ever fully understand you. This is a bitter day because you believe that they're going to open up their heart. You're going to open up your heart and they're going to understand every little thing about you. They won't. They will never fully understand you. And they were never meant to. Humans aren't built like that. We're not built to fully understand one another. And I had someone tell me that. I was like, but I just can't understand why she does this, why she does that, why she does that. I don't understand. And finally stopped me. And he was like, listen, it's great that you're trying to understand each other. And continue that. That's not a bad thing. Please, you should try to understand each other as much as you can. While at the same time knowing that you never will. And instead of trying to understand her, how about this? You accept her and you love her. Sometimes people aren't there to be understood. Sometimes they're there to be loved, even if you don't understand, So update your idea of what connection means. It's like there's chemistry and there's connection. But the new definition of connection is that's going to include plenty of places for interruptions, misunderstandings, and differences of opinion. That idea like, oh, if you love me, you should know what I need. No, you're going to have to switch that to it's each of our responsibilities to identify and express what we need. Only then can you honor the other person. Only then. That's the only, you can go with the one myth if you like. You will be miserable. You will be resentful, So the goal is not to see a relationship as a vehicle for salvation. Oh, save me from myself. David Schnarak, he's a pretty, I like him a lot, relationship specialist. He calls relationships people growing machines. That's how you become a person in these things, So what is a compatible partner? What do I mean by that? People really don't get this. A compatible partner is a partner who has the willingness and commitment to put in the necessary work required to grow with you, to protect that. So I know people, and he's like, oh, this guy loves me. He's like, okay. And they'll tell me, but he's still looking at porn. Okay, And this really hurts me, and it bothers me, and it prevents me from feeling close to him. Okay, but I know he loves me. Well, hold on. You're talking about he feels love for you. That's fine. He's not going to be, if this thing really bothers you, he will not be compatible with you. I don't care how much he loves you until he makes a commitment and he has a willingness to put in the necessary work to to maintain that relationship. And for you, this bothers you. Not right, not wrong. We don't have to judge it. It bothers you, period. For whatever reason. You just can't make it work with that. Well, can he put in the necessary work? I don't know. Does he have to go see a therapist? Does he have to Sex Anonymous? Puts a filter? I have no idea. But if he's willing to take care of it and he tries, that's all you can ask, And maybe you could work with him, But he is willing to grow. Both you will always have to grow. Period. Okay? Both you have to put in the necessary work, So, and that's really just the beginning, to kind of redefining for healthy love what it means to have chemistry, connection, and compatibility, And that's just the beginning. There's other things, you have to abandon completely the belief that your emotions alone will lead you to the right partner, or that your emotions is a good, accurate indicator of whether you should stay and leave. And I've seen it like, should I stay with him? Should I be with him? How do you feel? Forget that. Your feelings lie. There's dopamine, epinephrine. Forget about that. Do you like yourself when you're with them? Do you want to be like that person? Does that person make you better? This is why if you have any anxiety problems, you do not trust your gut. Now, I'm saying that, but there's a very good reason. Because I used to play poker for a living, and quite a bit. I'd have to trust my gut when I was sitting there, and I'm trying to pick up, and I don't know what to do. I don't know, should I fold, should I raise? And I'm trying to do the calculations. And there are times where you have to trust your gut. But I must say, so many times where I thought I was trusting my gut, and I was just reacting to my own fears. And that's because your gut is like a microphone for your mind. If your mind's anxious, your gut will feel anxious and kind of blare out danger, threat. So fear messages will sound louder and more convincing than anything else you're feeling. So if I'm afraid to raise, if I'm afraid and I check in my gut, my gut must be really like, oh my God, don't do that. You'll lose too much money. And instead of kind of coolly dealing with things, you have to be in a place of equanimity to trust your gut. And if you're in that, okay, see what your gut says. Most of the time, we're not in a place of equanimity. Very rarely, And then think about it. Like, your gut and how you feel changes all the time, And what's happening in your gut will sound even louder than the love you have for them, louder than the attraction, louder than the desire to commit. Why? Because fear. The fear you have. And that'll be in your gut. I just feel too afraid. And it'll override all those other emotions because it'll just be too frightening if you're an anxious person. But you don't have to listen to your gut, And you have to realize that you do change. Hey, this month I'm very confident about the relationship. I feel very capable. I can handle it. Next month I'll be unsure. I'm not sure if I can handle this. I don't know where it's going. Now I'm filled with doubt. Who cares? And what's crazy is no one would ever advise you to make any other kind of major decision based on your emotion, Like, oh, you want to buy this house? What does your gut tell you? How do you feel? No. Write down how much money you have in the bank and see if you can afford it. Ask other people if this is a good finance. Any other decision, of course, we are informed by our emotions. But ultimately, we use kind of a higher place or values or principles to make these decisions, So if you're asking, like, okay, how do I make these decisions, The answer is to look for good enough levels when you're valuing your relationship. Is there kind of a good enough happiness to it? Do you feel a good enough level of attraction? Do you feel, instead of saying, are you aligned with them? Is there kind of a good enough alignment? Does your partner meet your needs a good enough number of times? The conflicts you have, do you do a good enough job at working through them and reestablishing connection? Is it good enough? Good enough. Now, if it sounds like I'm saying, hey, you should settle in your relationship, then, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Settle. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm asking you to settle from an impossible standard of perfection. The standard that's caused you pain and anxiety and loneliness. Yeah, the one that fuels your anxiety. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Settle. You won't find that. Good enough. Is this person good enough? Why? Because that's real. We're human beings. We're broken. Oh, we're so anxious. We're so insecure. We're so afraid. We're mentally ill. We're under a lot of stress. We're just humans. These days we ask like what we used to get from a village, from an individual. Like, oh, I want you to be my lover, and also give me money, and also be my therapist, and also my best friend, and also be there to listen to me, and also, it's like, oh my Lord. You want me to pull off like 10 different, I can't do that, good Lord, my Lord, That's too much pressure. So the best advice is don't fall in love, don't do that. Rather, walk into love, people fall into love, get swept in all these emotions. I know. But there are a lot of people in relationships who act wisely, cautiously. And if you're anxious, I say that. I'm like, listen, if you're an anxious person, put off sex. Why? Because you don't want to get all these feelings right away. Don't text them every day. Why? Because you'll get too close. Don't vomit your entire trauma history. Why? Because it's too intimate. Take your time. Walk slowly. See that it's safe before going deeper, And a lot of people will sit there and tell me well, no, that's not romantic. No, come on, that's very programmatic, and you're just kind of, gently going into it. Come on. Oh, really? Listen, would you spontaneously just drop everything today and go on a 3-month vacation? Just spontaneously. Oh, I was just caught up in the emotion. I thought of Puerto Rico, and I got so excited. I just called up that day and ordered my plane ticket. Of course not. Would you just take a job? She just got all excited, and you just were swept up by it? No. You think about it. Is this good? Is this the right time? You take your time. You think about these things. And yet, when it comes to your partner for life and love, you're going to do it like that? Really? You're just going to fall into it and whatever, boom, you're just going to follow that. Good luck with that. It doesn't work, Would you really expect yourself to fall just spontaneously into something as important as love? Really? When you could walk into it? You can do a slower pace? And by the way, the slower pace I'm talking about is intentional choice. Oftentimes this can turn into avoidance, right? And avoidance is the byproduct of anxiety and fear. So you don't want that either. But here's the thing. A lot of relationships won't work out. A lot of them won't, That's one, this is kind of a tough thought, an unpleasant thought, but I know a lot of people, they get into the relationship and they can't pull the trigger. They can't get married. Why? Because they have so much anxiety. It feels like they're making the ultimate life decision that's irrevocable, and their life will be changed forever, and they'll be trapped. I hear that. But that's not true. That's not true. That's just not true. That's one of the most distressing thoughts for someone with anxiety. A lot of people with relationship OCD, anxious attachment, they're not married, they never get married because they have this thought, if I get married, if I commit, I'll be trapped. What if the relationship doesn't work out? And you're so afraid of being unendurably miserable that you miss out on good enough love. But here's the thing. Divorce exists. I know you don't want to hear that, but it does. And for anxious people, they need to know there's an exit and out. They think oh Lord, if I have a child, they'll eat up all my time. They're oh, you're getting so anxious. Calm down. There are solutions. I know you don't want to hear this, but let's say you do have a child, and let's say it does eat up a lot of your time. Well, hold on. Maybe you can hire a babysitter part of the day. Maybe you could find a friend or family member to take care. Maybe, and God forbid, if you're really miserable, you can get divorced. Don't make it easy. Don't go to that. But for someone with anxiety, it's so much pressure. They will not make a commitment unless they do have some door that they know they can escape from. So that's that. Just knowing you had an escape route and that you could survive. Just knowing that alone actually might be all you need to take that leap of faith into the unknown. And the truth is, we all have this thought, will I be okay? Will I be okay? If I get married, will I be okay? Will I be okay? Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, and you don't either. No one knows if you're going to be okay. And that sounds like an awful answer. Like, will I be okay? I don't know. You don't know either. You don't got to know. But that's actually the attitude of an explorer, It's the attitude of someone who's accepted that life's a journey, right? And that any pleasure and satisfaction you get, it's not going to come from knowing for certain what's going to happen. In fact, if you did know it was certain, if you're very certain, it probably would not even be worth playing the game. So when you think, will I be okay if I get married? Will I be okay if I commit? Will I be okay if I start really dating this person seriously? And you think, I don't know. I really don't know. That's okay. That's okay. That's not a reason to stop. You might have other good reasons. That's okay. Can you be okay not knowing if you'll be okay? Practice it. There's a bunch of other things I could say, but I think this is a good idea of what love is, what you can expect, and what real relationships are. And if these are your expectations, you'll have a lot less anxiety, a lot less pressure on yourself. People come in, my job is to make my partner happy. No. Their job is to make me happy. No, they will never do that. You don't have that much power. You can't do that. You can be reasonable and you can help them out. You can grow with them. You can, make their lives as pleasant as possible. But happiness, that's a deep game. And you're just a person, So let go of the stress and just have a good enough relationship. It's rewarding. There's deep rewards in that too. But that would help with a lot of anxiety. Anyway, if you have any comments or questions, just leave it in the, you can ask. I'll try to answer. And again, I appreciate you guys listening. Okay.